Muslims living with Hindus. Problem. Muslims living with Baha'is. Problem. Muslims living with Shintos. Problem. Muslims living with Buddhists. Problem. Muslims living with Christians. Problem. Muslims living with Muslims. Very big problem. So this led to, they're not happy in Gaza. They're not happy in Egypt. They're not happy in Libya. They're not happy in Iran. They're not happy in Iraq. They're not happy in Yemen. They're not happy in Pakistan. They're not happy in Syria. They're not happy in Lebanon. They're not happy in Nigeria. They're not happy in Kenya. They're not happy in Sudan. They're not happy in Morocco. And they're not happy in Afghanistan. So where are they happy? They're happy in Australia. They're happy in Belgium. They're happy in France. They're happy in Holland. They're happy in Italy. They're happy in Germany. They're happy in Spain. They're happy in Sweden. They're happy in Denmark. They're happy in the USA and Canada. They're happy in Norway and India. They're very happy in England. Loads of welfare benefits. They're happy in almost every country that is not Islamic. And who do they blame? Not Islam. Not their leadership. Not themselves. They blame the countries they are happy in. And they want to change the countries they're happy in to be like the countries they came from.
All right. Hello. And this has been a long time coming. I know a lot of you have been very patient, and I am sorry it's taken a lot longer. I was struggling to edit. In fact, my wonderful husband has taken on the task to now edit my videos. So a very special and heartfelt thank you to him. Now I want to also begin by saying this is not clickbait. I fully intended to bring to you, after this long wait, an in-person interview with a Dr. Muhammad Ilyas, MD. And I will get more into that in a minute. But first, I am not justifying the murder of innocent women and children in the Gaza Strip. Nothing can justify murder. Originally, I had intended to interview Dr. Muhammad Ilyas, MD, Associated Professor at the University of Florida, as I already mentioned, for a conversation about Islam as part of my ongoing series on faith and belief systems. During our discussion to set up the interview, Dr. Ilyas delayed, insisting that I first read the book he authored, Beyond the Myths, diving deep into the reality of Islam. Before we could move forward, he suggested that should I have questions afterwards, we could proceed with the interview. However, I had already included the questions I had planned to ask in every email, and none of them were ever acknowledged or addressed. After reading his book, I found the content troubling, especially coming from an American professor at a major university. Much of what was presented seemed to echo talking points more aligned with BLM style political rhetoric than with a balanced or theological explanation of Islam. As a result, the questions I intended to ask became more focused on the content of his book rather than the broad and respectful overview of Islam I had initially planned. As a Christian who was a young adult during the events of 9/11, I was influenced by fear of Islam that swept through America at the time. In recent years, however, I've become disillusioned with Evangelical Christianity, especially due to the widespread influence of the Scofield Reference Bible. And I began to wonder if my perception on Islam had been unfair or uninformed. After this experience, I remain uncertain whether Dr. Ilyas represents the broader Muslim community or if his perspective is an outlier. But based on the tone and substance of his book and our exchanges, my thoughts on Islam have not changed. That said, I want to make it clear that I hold no ill will towards Dr. Ilyas, MD. I respect his right to express his views and appreciate that he took the time to respond to some of my follow-up questions. My goal here is not to attack him personally, but to encourage honestly with the ideas presented in his book. I sincerely hope that after the release of this video, someone from the Muslim community might be open to engaging in a real, respectful, and honest dialogue. I will be proposing open-ended questions to the Muslim community at the end of this video. Someone from the Muslim community might be open to engaging. I don't know if Dr. Ilyas believed I was attempting to conduct a gotcha interview, or if he was simply so confident in his message that he assumed his book alone would suffice. In this video, I'll share excerpts from Beyond the Myths, diving deep into the reality of Islam, along with the responses he did provide to some of my follow-up questions. Whether or not he was offended by my inquiries, I cannot say. But he did take the time to respond. After watching, you can decide for yourself whether this is a religion of peace.
عن أرض الهدى ونقدم الأرواح دون تواني وسنضرب الأعناق عن أجسادهم ونحرر الأقصى الحزين العاري ونقود جيش الله منجز وعده ونسوق.
And did that mob?
Question 1. While I completely understand your point on media biased against Muslims, do you think a similar thing is happening to the white communities around the world? Are they slowly being erased by multiculturalism, particularly in places like South Africa, England, the US, and now in Japan with the Japanese?
MashaAllah, you could hear the adhan blocks away.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah.
This is the proposed epic city right outside of Dallas, Texas. It is a 402-acre master-planned Muslim community with over 1,000 homes, a mosque, K-12 faith-based schools, community college, commercial spaces, and they'd like to be self-governed by the Quran, the rules of the Quran, or Sharia law, not US laws. They are naming their streets after Islamic conquerors.
器物損壊の疑いで逮捕されたのは、アフリカのガンビア共和国籍でタルミ区に住む無職のママドー・バルでいた木箱を地面に叩きつけたりする様子も映っています。
Number 2. Do you think the current conflict in the Middle East is influenced by media bias? Do you believe there is a larger behind-the-scenes agenda at play? Number 3, you mentioned in your book that Muslims have historically been portrayed as protecting their lands dating back to the Crusades. What are your thoughts on Muslims seemingly defending their presence in the Western lands like England, Ireland, France, and Canada today? Number 4, given your discussion of media bias, do you think radical Islam is, in some cases, created and encouraged by Western governments like the CIA to help overthrow Middle Eastern governments? Number 5, you referenced the Crusades several times in your book. Do you believe both Christians and Muslims have a claim to the land in the Middle East? Number 6, do you think the state of Israel plays a role in spreading misinformation about Islam? Number 7, could you clarify the true meaning of jihad for my followers? Number 8, Christians in the Middle East have faced constant persecution. Who do you think is behind these attacks? Number 9, I found it fascinating that the Quran discusses Satan. Does the concept of Satan align with the Christian understanding of the figure? Number 10, some critics might claim that anyone can cherry pick verses from the Quran to justify their own agenda, similar to how the state of Israel uses passages from the Talmud and the Torah to justify Greater Israel. What do you say to this? Number 11, you eloquently describe how Islam at its core is a religion of peace. How would you respond to critics who cite media portrayals of violence carried out by Muslims as evidence against this claim? Number 12, many people are taught that Islam traces its origins back to Abraham's son Ishmael, who was not meant to be born, which supposedly explains the ongoing conflict between Muslims and Israelites. Is this true? If not, what is the truth from your perspective? Number 13, can you explain the 5 pillars of Islam? Number 14, Ramadan seems similar to Lent in Christianity. Is Ramadan timed for the same reason? Number 15, why do so many non-Muslims believe that Prophet Muhammad married a young girl and consummated the marriage when she was 9 years old? Number 16, how would you address the perception that some Muslims continue to marry young girls today, given the historical practices are often judged by modern standards? Number 17, how do critics misunderstand Islam's teachings regarding women, particularly when it comes to issues like wearing the burqa, honor killings, and arranged marriages to older men. As you pointed out in your book, the media plays a role in spreading misinformation. How would you explain this? Number 18. Many Christians claim that Jesus' coming brought women out of oppression. How would you address these claims in relation to the treatment of women in Islam? Number 19. I agree with your assessment that the Bible was written to make women more subservient to their husbands or fathers. However, I believe the Bible was manipulated during King James's time and later in 1909 with the help of the Scofield Reference Bible. Do you have any insights into this? Number 20. In your book, you discuss Sharia law. Could you explain in more detail how Sharia law is supposed to protect women? Number 21. Given the Sharia law has been misused in some Muslim majority countries, do you believe it should be abolished altogether? 22. I agree with your point that Western women have become overly sexualized at an increasingly young age. The media often blames the way women dress for crimes like rape. How would you address this complex issue in the context of Islamic teaching? 23. There is often talk on social media about Islam being incompatible with democracy. While America is not technically a democracy, but a constitutional republic, you addressed this in your book. Do you still believe Islam can coexist with democratic systems? If Sharia law is considered the best form of government, why do so many Muslims live in Western countries? Doesn't this appear to contradict the notion that Sharia is superior to democratic form of governance? 24. Do you believe the widespread belief that Sharia is the best form of government contributes to the perception that Muslim refugees are reluctant to assimilate into Western culture? 25. If the conflict in the Middle East were to end, do you think Muslim refugees would return to their homeland? 26. I agree with your view that American democracy has strayed from its original constitutional design. Given that, would it be more prudent to restore the founding fathers' version of the constitutional republic before claiming that Sharia law is superior? 27. I agree with your assessment that American neocons, Zionists, the CIA, have contributed to the radicalization of Muslims in the Middle East, leading to needless deaths. Who do you think is ultimately behind the ongoing hardships and wars in the Middle East? 28. How would you bring about peace in the region and address the radical extremists who continue to destabilize the Middle East? 29. When you talk about Islam promoting social justice, wealth redistribution, and collective responsibility, which some interpret as codes for Marxism and communism, how do you prevent people from viewing Islam through the same lens? 30. the Ottoman Empire had Irish slaves up until the end of World War I. What is your view on this? How do you reconcile this historical fact when celebrating or acknowledging the legacy of the Ottoman Empire? 31. In light of current events, what is your perspective on the slaves still being sold in Islam majority countries such as Syria and Afghanistan? Well, here's a few of the paragraphs and wording from the professor's book. I'm just going to read it and then I will share the response to the question I had asked. And some, not all, but some of them do contradict each other in the book versus what he emailed me. So here we go. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Islam is the hijab, headscarf, often portrayed as a symbol of female oppression. In reality, the hijab is a personal choice made by Muslim women as an expression of modesty, faith, and empowerment. It is part of the broader Islamic concept of modesty, which applies to both men and women, but women are specifically encouraged to wear it as a sign of dignity, self-respect, and commitment to their faith. My only comment to this is that he doesn't specifically go into the chapter related to hijabs about what happens to the women if they don't wear it, if they choose to go without a headscarf or wear jeans and a t-shirt. He doesn't specifically say anything about that or about the burqa. Number 2, one of the most frequently asked questions is whether Islam is compatible with democracy. This question often arises in the context of modern political discussion, especially in societies where secular democracy is considered the ideal system of government. Some argue that Islam and democracy are fundamentally incapable due to differences in the source of sovereignty. Democracy places ultimate authority in the hands of the people, while Islam recognizes God, Allah, as the ultimate sovereign. However, a deeper explanation of Islamic governance principles and the realities of modern democracy reveals a more nuanced answer. People are allowed to vote, but their opinions are predetermined by party structure, lobby groups, and corporate sponsors. Democracy, in theory, allows everyone equal voice, but in reality, powerful interest groups, corporations, and elites control the political landscape. In the US, for example, lobby groups like AIPAC, corporate giants, and special interest organizations exert massive influence over elections, policies, and legislation, effectively dictating political outcomes. Politicians depend on campaign funding from wealthy donors, which often results in laws favoring corporate interest rather than the welfare of ordinary citizens. End quote. What he completely leaves out, and for American professor in a university, you should be thinking to yourself, how could he call America a democracy when clearly our founding fathers envisioned and created for us a constitutional republic? Therefore, some of his points he lays out in that paragraph do not apply to Americans, although some things he did point out are factual. AIPAC, for one, corporate giants and special interest organizations do lobby and buy off or blackmail our politicians. But this is not a reflection of our political system. It's in fact, it shows that our political system is not operating at the level that our founding fathers had originally intended. So for him to suggest that Islam is the better system contradicts that, or assumes that our political system is wrong. But in fact, our political system is fantastic and perfect. The problem is that over 130 years, we've been infiltrated and blackmailed, and our politicians bought off. Have we tried the founding fathers' constitutional republic in a while? No. And it shows. So before we decide to change our country, or the Western civilization for that matter, how about we try to rid ourselves of our oppressors? Question 3 and 4. While he does not address the matter of refugees specifically, he does state, thus, Islam is not inherently opposed to democracy, but rather it offers a superior model that addresses the flaws of modern democracy systems by ensuring true accountability, ethical leadership, and just governance. The principles of Sharia, justice, and public welfare make Islamic governance a viable and fair alternative to the power-driven democracies of today. 5. The professor suggests that the country should uphold the founding values, but on the same note, he says, like I addressed in the previous paragraph from the book, that Islam offers a superior model to democracy that much of the Western world currently subscribes to. He also says, quote, Islam does not support blind majoritarian rule where majority is dictated by popular opinion or wealthy elites. Instead, it upholds a system where governance is bound by divine justice and leaders are chosen based on integrity and competence, and recommends perhaps an Islamic government for the West, end quote. 6 and 7. The professor here is fairly consistent in his answer and blames colonialism and Western intrusion in the Middle East as a case of conflict, corruption, as well as other factors. This is shown where he states, quote, extremism, conflict, and terrorism are not products of Islam, but rather the result of historical injustice, oppression, economic hardship, and foreign interventions. By addressing the root cause, such as poverty, political oppression, foreign invasion, and economic exploration, We can work towards a world where extremism is no longer a threat. Islam at its core promotes peace, justice, and coexistence, and these values must be upheld in global policies to create a just and peaceful world for all. He lays out an exhaustive list how he believes this can be ended, including mutual understanding and dialogue, end of military invasion and economic intervention. From who, though? End quote. Number 8. The professor claims zakat is a form of wealth recirculation and distribution, but the way he brings it up in his book sounds different than tithe and what Christians understand to be charity, as he states, quote, Muslims are required to give a portion of their wealth to help those in need. This ensures that the wealth is circulated in society, preventing the rich from hoarding resources and encouraging social justice. Economic wealth must be managed ethically and shared with the needy through zakat, charity. This ensures continuous wealth redistribution, preventing extreme poverty, and claims zakat has even eradicated poverty in certain caliphates. End quote. Now, like you, if you are an American or somebody from the West, you will notice that sounds a lot like communism. Now, I'm not making assumptions. I'm not even sure if they can even see how that sounds, or if they're so wrapped up in their belief and their communities that they don't recognize what they are saying. This is another reason why I wanted to go on this religious road to discovery, to find out why people think and believe the things they believe. 9 and 10. On the topic of slavery, the professor says before Islam, Arabian society was filled with injustice, tribal wars, slavery, and oppression of women were common. Muhammad, PBUH, changed this by teaching that all humans are equal regardless of race or social status. The professor does not have much to say in his book about slavery, just that the Quran forbids owning one as though they are property. This does not address the still thriving practice of slavery trade in Muslim majority countries today. Answers to the questions I sent back, and this is the response from the professor. He only answered a few, but I will read and show that, and I will show a screenshot of his response. 1. Blaming women's dress for rape. Islam places the responsibility of modesty on both men and women. The Quran commands men to lower their gaze and women to dress modestly. Shura 24:30-31. Crime is the result of the perpetrator, and Islam enforces justice for victims. 2. Islam and democracy. Islam supports justice, consultation, Sharia, and accountability, which align with democratic principles. Muslims living in the West do so for various reasons: opportunity, stability, or safety without injecting Sharia moral values. Number 3, Muslim refugees and assimilation. Many refugees adapt to new environments while maintaining their faith. Sharia governs personal ethics and community life, but does not prevent coexistence with other systems. Number 4, refugees returning home. If peace and stability returns, many refugees would prefer to go back. However, economic and social conditions often dictate long-term settlement. End quote. This again does not address how Muslims who are refugees, they will in fact return home to vacation all the time to the Middle East. How is it that they justify living off welfare, like the case of the UK, and yet you never see them fully assimilating or showing respect or gratitude to the host nation that they are living in? Number 5, restoring the constitutional republic. A just government should uphold its founding values. If those values are distorted, reform is necessary before comparing systems. Number 6, causing a Middle Eastern conflicts. A mix of colonialism, geographical interest, foreign invaders, and corrupt leadership has led to instability. Justice and sovereignty are key to peace. 7, addressing extremism. Islam opposes extremism. Shir al-Babakara 2:143. Addressing root causes, economic disparity, injustice, and ideological distortion is critical. End quote. Sorry for butchering some of these names. It is not a custom for me to read Islamic text or passages. No disrespect. Number 8, Islam versus Marxism and communism. Islam promotes social justice through sakita, an ethical wealth circulation, while respecting private property, entrepreneurship. Unlike Marxism, Islam maintains a balance between individual and collective rights. End quote. He doesn't actually touch on communism at all right there. Number 9, Ottoman Empire and slavery. Slavery was a global phenomenon, not unique to the Ottomans. Islam gradually moved toward its eradication, emphasizing human treatment and emancipation. Shirama Muhammad 47:4. Number 10, modern day slavery. Islam strictly forbids oppression and exploitation. Sharia Nasasiya 475. Any form of slavery today is a violation of Islamic principles and must be abolished. End quote. See, I do appreciate his acknowledgement that there is some slavery, and if it's being practiced, it should be abolished. My complaints, which I don't really have any complaints. I don't feel any ill will towards this professor. He believes what he believes, and I believe as a Christian what I believe, and I was hoping, and I still do, for a long form interview where we discuss openly back and forth our beliefs and how they may not coincide with each other.
Chapter of Jihad, so nobody says we're making things up. Chapter of Jihad. We will open the chapter of jihad that is present in all of our mosques. That I wish that I could be killed for the sake of Allah, then brought back to life, then killed, then brought back to life, then killed, then brought back to life, then killed once again, and then you go become a martyr and you go and you get your 72 virgins. And this is not something that we are just reading. This is not a magazine. This is Sahih al-Bukhari. The authentic. Sahih means authentic. After intense filtration for 1,200 years, this is what we have now come with to form the religion of Islam. So when you see its non-stop attacks towards the West, you know why. Because they themselves wish to die, come back to life, to die again, come back to life, and die and come and non-stop. This love for death.
I'm headed to an area called Lakemba in Sydney, Australia, and it's supposed to be a very high Muslim population area. As soon as we arrived in Lakemba, things were tense. There were heads turning, people coming out of shops to look at us and find out what we were doing. Men started yelling in Arabic across the street at us. As we went to go for a walk to the local mosque, a very high-ranked police officer came up to me and begged with me, do not go.
I've got grave concerns that you may cause an imminent breach of the peace down there, so I'm asking you not to attend.
As far as I'm concerned, they have Sharia law here. I was told if I talk to people, even if I put all my cameras away, I can't criticize Islam to people here on a public street in Australia, in Sydney. Don't tell me you don't have no-go zones. Don't tell me this is a multicultural country.
You go back to the 50s in London and people used to leave their child in the pram outside the shop as they went shopping inside. Imagine that, leaving your child in a pram outside while they go shopping. That society where it's extremely safe, everyone's well-meaning, it's held to a high standard. That was stolen from us. It was sold from under us. And the reason for that everyone is too scared to say is because in the 1960s, London was 97 to 98% white British. Today, it stands at 36%. We went from a homogenous society where trust is high, community involvement is high, crime is low, people share the same traditions, culture, values, beliefs, heritage, and instead it went into a multicultural society where trust is low, community involvement is low, crime is high, social isolation is higher, charity giving is lower. Because of multiculturalism, we live in a broken society.
Now, for questions proposed to the Muslim community. 1. Many people are taught that Islam traces its origins back to Abraham's son Ishmael, who was not meant to be born, which supposedly explains the ongoing conflict between Muslims and Israelites. Is this true? If not, what is the truth from your perspective? Question 2. While I completely understand that there is media bias against Muslims, do you think something similar is happening to the white communities around the world? Are they slowly being erased by multiculturalism, particularly in places like South Africa, UK, the US, and now Japan? Question 3. I understand that you follow Muhammad because he was the last great prophet. But if you believe Jesus was also a prophet and born of a virgin, why are none of his teachings included in the Quran? Question 4. Muhammad talks about only going to war when necessary. What justifies what is considered necessary? Question 5. The Quran talks about respecting other religions and coexisting peacefully. Why does it seem that wherever a large Muslim population establishes itself, they eventually take over and push out the native citizens? Example, the UK, Dearborn, Michigan, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Question 6. Why does Islam appear to be more prone to extremism? Question 7. Why do some people describe Muhammad as a warlord? Question 8. If Muhammad teaches about coexisting, why does there never seem to be any cultural assimilation? Number 9. Do you believe the widespread belief that Sharia law is the best form of government contributes to the perception that Muslim refugees are reluctant to assimilate into Western culture? Number 10. In light of current events, what is your perspective on the fact that slavery still exists in some Muslim majority countries, such as Syria and Afghanistan? I hope to hear back from imam or somebody in a cultural center for Islam, or maybe you can leave a comment below and explain why you believe what you believe and answer any of the 10 questions. Thank you.